If you're doing an exercise and you start peeing your pants, is there something you could do different versus I'm not going to think about it, I'm just going to push through, or this like panic of like my body's broken, it's never going to be the same, I'm never going to be the same. Could we shift that to just get curious? Can you play with some strategies?
Are you done with being that pregnant or postpartum mom in the gym who is always stuck on the sidelines feeling horrible, saying, "How come no one ever told me this?" Are you ready to finally say no to a mom life filled with excess weight, injury, overwhelm, and fatigue? Then help is here. Welcome to the Strong Moms Fitness Podcast, where we dive deep into the information you need to be the strongest woman in and out of the gym, even if you are a mom. If you are done going through your pregnancy or postpartum fitness journey clueless and unprepared, if you are ready to commit and say yes to being that badass fit mom who is shredded and stronger than before the baby, well, listen up. Because this is where we talk about all of the things your doctor or trainer never told you about, so that you can achieve the body you want and take your athletic strength and performance to the next level. Get ready, because here's your host, Daisy Bravo.
Well, hello, and welcome to the Strong Moms Fitness Podcast. And as always, I'm super stoked because I have another amazing guest. Today, I am joining you with Kaye Burrows. Now, Kaye loves helping women regain their power to control their experiences in their bodies. Pregnancy, birth, and postpartum were transformative experiences for her, and she passionately supports other women through those same transitions. Kaye is a mom to 3 kiddos and has run Core Love Fitness for over 5 years, where she coaches moms through trying to conceive, pregnancy, postpartum, and beyond. And I brought Kaye on the show specifically because through her postpartum period, she had experienced some issues with leakage. And I find that so many moms struggle with leakage, and it's still a little bit taboo. Women are keeping it to themselves, they're hiding it, maybe they're putting on a pad, and some moms just accept this as normal and don't realize that this is something we can work to improve. So I have brought Kaye on to chat a little bit more about leakage and how she helps her clients work through leakage, whether they are interested in lifting heavier weights or if they want to get back into running. You are not going to want to miss this. So stick around and check out my interview with Kaye Burrows. Kaye, welcome to the Strong Moms Fitness Podcast. I am so excited you're here today with me. I really wanted to bring you on the show today because on top of offering postpartum fitness programming, you also work with women who struggle with leakage in the gym. And before we jump into all that leakage stuff, I would love for you to share your fitness journey and how you came to work specifically with pregnant and postpartum women.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Daisy. The reason why I think I love helping women to solve that problem is because I remember after having my first baby, and I really thought you wait the 6 weeks like you're supposed to, and then you just go back to doing whatever you're going to do. And so for me, that was running and lifting some weights. And I really liked to go to like a boot camp style workout. And I remember leaving multiple stroller boot camp workouts, and I don't even know if I peed my pants. It's one thing to be like, oh, shoot, I'm peeing my pants with exercise. And there it's a whole nother level of humbling experience to be like, I don't even know what's coming out of my body. Can my vagina sweat this much? And the more I would seek out support from my doctor, the message was always like, listen to your body, which is really a nice sentiment. But I've never lived in a body this before. I've never lived in a body that had pushed out a human of through my body before. I just thought, if I, a person who has a background in exercise and understanding of the human body, if I am so lost in my body, how must other women be feeling? And that set off my whole journey.
Awesome. Now, what did your workouts look like before your pregnancy? And did they have to evolve after pregnancy?
Yes. Oh my gosh, they had to evolve, but I resisted it for a long time. I played for my university hockey team, so we did a lot of training in the gym and weightlifting. And then when I finished university, I did a lot of running. That was kind of my new thing to put my energy into. So I think I really bought into this idea that if I had a fit pregnancy, put that in quotation marks now, that I would just bounce back. And that was the messaging that, to be honest, I was getting from my doctor and everyone else. And so I didn't know what to do differently other than I understood take the time off, right? I did that. I
Sure.
don't even actually think I took the full 6 weeks off, but I think I took 4 weeks off. And then I thought, I'm strong, I'm fit, I know what to do. I'll just go back to doing it. And I also assumed that if I went to like a mom and me boot camp or a stroller size class, I assumed that the people teaching those classes would be experts. And so they would guide me in my kind of return to fitness. I know now that no knock against them, but they weren't experts. They were just moms teaching fitness, right? So they didn't have any specialized training. And so they weren't able necessarily to deal with something like leaking. It was either you were either told like just stop running and walk, or like welcome to motherhood, put on a pad,
Mhm.
here we go.
What have you noticed is missing in the education that maybe these moms had that were teaching your stroller class versus something in a more specialized pregnancy postpartum class? What's missing here? What's the gap here?
Yeah, I just think there's a major either disregard or lack of understanding from the top down. And I know this because in my own experience, I applied to teach one of those stroller size classes. I thought I could do this. I have a background in exercise. I had some training at that time in pre and postnatal, but not a lot. So to be honest, I was like, I don't know if they'll hire me, but I went to the interview prepared to say, I've done this course, but I also am going to finish these 3 courses in the next couple months. And that's why I think I'd be a really good fit. And like, they were not looking for any pre and postnatal specialization. It was basically like, you're a mom and you understand exercise, so like you could teach exercise to moms. And I always say like, well, sure, like I've gone to a yoga class, but like no one's going to hire me to run yoga classes at the local studio unless I have a certification, right? But it wasn't that way with those types of classes.
Wow, that's so interesting. So I wonder if maybe they themselves didn't know that they were missing something. Maybe
I
they
don't think at
just
all.
thought that we just need this role model who looks great and has a baby in the stroller, and that's all the qualifications. So that's
Yeah.
really scary. Sorry you
Mm-hmm.
had to experience that, but and it's true. A lot of women do experience something like that, whether it be like a baby boot camp, maybe put on by sometimes it's an individual, sometimes it's through your gym, but it's kind of sad that
Mm-hmm.
maybe they don't really know what they're missing. And I think a lot of moms don't know what they're missing either. So it's scary. It's scary that, and that's one of the common things that I hear with a lot of moms is, well, no one told me this. I didn't really know. All of a sudden, I got issues with the prolapse, for example, and I didn't really know that that would happen to me. So that's
Mm-hmm.
super sad. And when it comes to something like leaking, it seems to be a thing of shame, embarrassment. Peeing your pants is not something that we like to
Mm-hmm.
invite conversation with. And why do you think that women are so sensitive when it comes to talking to about issues of leakage? Why are women just accepting that this is how it is, that this is just a part of being a mom?
Well, I think I kind of see two scenarios with that. For the most part, and especially when I started doing this type of coaching, it was exactly what you said, right? I didn't know that there was another option. All of the women in my life are telling me, "Welcome to motherhood. You'll never jump on a trampoline again." That's what the conversations I was hearing from older women in my life, or like, just if you want to run, put on a pad and suck it up. So I think it's starting to shift. I think there's been more information online. There's a lot of people sharing information. And so now what I see sometimes is women coming to me and they leak and they know they shouldn't, but the only messaging that they are finding is like, well, if you're leaking, stop doing the thing, right? So if you leak when you run, you can't run. If you leak when you lift, you have to stop lifting. And some women do, and that's heartbreaking because they basically stop exercising. And we also know that lack of exercise is a risk factor for leaking. So that's not a helpful cycle to get into. And a lot of women don't, right? They're just like, okay, well, whatever. I guess I just pee my pants now because I don't want to stop running or I don't want to stop lifting or whatever. So I don't know what's worse. None of those scenarios are great in my mind.
Sure. I feel like diastasis is on the forefront right now, like as the hot topic or the thing that women worry about, or some women treat it like a badge of honor. Do you tend to notice with the clients that you work with that they're more worried about diastasis because it's more aesthetic? Keep the leakage quiet, but they're really like, oh, the first thing I want to do is fix this diastasis. And then meanwhile, they're leaking all over the place. Do you see that? Do you see that there's still people don't really admit that they have issues with leakage still?
I definitely see it early on. I mean, I find pretty quickly in the community of women that I work with that we're pretty open and vulnerable. And so it really creates a space for people to be like, oh yeah, actually me too. That totally happens to me. But I definitely find early on, often someone reaches out to me and it typically the first email is something like, I need help with my diastasis or I need help with my abs or whatever. But once they've filled out a questionnaire for me and I've gotten more history from them, almost always there's some form of leaking or pelvic floor dysfunction for sure. And then again, I think you're right. It comes to everyone can see my belly or they perceive that everyone is looking at their belly, whereas the leaking is just something that's bothering them and they feel like they could hide it, but the belly is on display. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of the aesthetic and the body image stuff to get through for sure.
Cool. Now, I'd like to know how you work with women when it comes to leakage. Are there like things that we can do to help reduce leakage issues when we start working out again?
Yeah, so I always tell women there's kind of two things that we need to look at if you're leaking. So number one is we need to reduce the load on your system in some way. There's lots of different ways to do that, but the fact that there is urine or feces or something coming out of the holes in your pelvic floor is telling us that there's too much load above it, right? So we need to decrease the load in some capacity. And then the second thing is we need to increase the strength or the overall capacity of your system. And those things, this is where I think we lose women who are the runners or the lifters, is because they've been told that all they can do is decrease the load, right? Stop running or stop lifting, or that they have to do that for a very long time before that they can increase the capacity of their system. And I really don't think those two things have to happen separately. Like I think you can be decreasing a load and increasing capacity at the same time. So, you know what I mean? Like maybe just a simple alignment shift, maybe a bit of a forward lean to keep the rib cage over top of the hips can actually increase the capacity that system can handle. And thus now the load meets the strength of the pelvic floor, right? Now maybe you're actually totally fine to keep skipping or running, or maybe it's a matter of adding some rotation to your run and not being so rigid, or actually relaxing your belly instead of clenching your belly, right? So there's ways that you can, I think, increase the capacity of the system without necessarily removing the activity that person wants to do. And then the other conversation comes back to what we were already saying with the aesthetic piece. A lot of times women, their identity is tied up in I am a runner, or I am a lifter, or I'm a fit person and I don't feel like I look like a fit person right now. And so they just feel that they must be running or doing those things. And sometimes we can get to that identity piece. We can help them to still feel like themselves in so many different ways. We can hit them with some strength training and some other modalities of training that will have less of a load on the pelvic floor while we build up their overall strength. Yeah, so that's kind of how I look at it. We have to decrease the load and increase the capacity, but those don't necessarily have to be separate or really slow. Those can sometimes happen at the same time.
Cool. Now, when you start working with someone before they start running or before they start lifting, is there any early work for these women to do before even getting under the bar or going for a jog or a run?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And I think you do some of this too, Daisy, but
Sure.
just really laying the foundation makes, I think, a huge difference. And I know I love the saying that slow is fast. Like it's worth it to pull back a little bit and really build those connections with your core, your pelvic floor, your deep abdominal muscles, strengthen your glutes, some of those really key players in that core system. Yeah, I really think there is a lot of value in building that foundation. And for some women, that's going to take maybe 4 to 6 weeks of really intentional work. For some women that might be more like 2 to 3 months. But I think it's really, really valuable. And for women that are struggling to do that, they want to skip over that piece. Again, I find it's like one of two things. It's either a panic, it's a body image aesthetic thing. I must get back to exercise because I feel like that will be the thing that makes them feel okay in their body again. Or it's more of that identity, like I'm athletic and these are the things that I need to be doing to feel like myself. And I totally get that too. So I just remind women, like, this isn't the body that you had before, right? Your body has changed. It's gone through significant things. So like, yeah, you probably know how to squat, but do you know how to squat with a pelvic floor that's pushed a baby out? Or do you know how to squat with a prolapse? Or do you know how to squat with a diastasis? Like, there might be some new considerations in your body, and it doesn't mean you can never squat under a bar again, but let's just figure out how to do that with the body that you have. And I mean, I know from my own story, I always tell women, like, it's worth it, because you could do what I did after my first baby and you could just go back to exercise. But then when my baby was 8 months old, I was like crippled on the floor with back pain. Like, it was so hard to even change a diaper. And like, that is not a life that anybody wants to be living with a newborn baby. So I wish I would have built the foundation first and saved myself that pain 8 months down the road.
Awesome. I love it. Now, once you've got someone like they've built their foundation and they're on that slow track to getting back into something like lifting or running, do you treat those activities as separate activities with maybe different protocol or system on how you get someone to increase their capacity? Do you have any boxes that you tick off before you take them to the next level of lifting? Do you take them through a little bit of a process, or are you just working and troubleshooting everyone as an individual?
Yeah, if you're working with an individual, then that's fun because you really get to tailor that to their own body and experience. But I find, actually, even though everybody's body is so unique, it can be fun to go through some of this process as a group together. So what I do, say I had a new mom come to me, she just had a baby, then I would put her through some of that foundational work for 4 to 6 weeks, where she's really just like connecting with her pelvic floor, learning what it feels like to have a max contraction versus a little contraction. What does it feel like to load your abdominals in a modified plank position, for example, after you've had a baby? So working on that foundational stuff. And then I put women through some phases of like specific strength building. And so that's building back your actual strength, your muscle mass, your capacity, your endurance, right? And a lot of women are just like blown away by this phase of training, because all of a sudden, like, the aches and pains of motherhood are just like not a big deal anymore, right? And that's what we know, and why I value fitness so much in parenting is that parenting is really physically demanding. So that phase is just really focused on building the strength and the capacity. And then from there, that's where I get to play with it again. Some women, they just want to stay there. They just want to strength train. Their entire goal is to just keep up with their kids, chase them at the park, not pee their pants, not have a sore back, etc. Right? So that's where we go forever. And then with other women, I start sprinkling in, so I call them plus workouts. So I start sprinkling in some plus workouts. And this for me is really about like that fitness, performance, and even just the joy of movement, bringing that back in. So we might do some like skill-based stuff, like let's learn some new kettlebell skills, or let's work on pull-ups, or building an impact again to return to running. That's going to look a little different if you actually are a runner and you want to run a race versus someone who's just like wants to chase their kids at the playground, right? But I do get all of my women building back into impact, because I think that's really important for bone health and bone density.
Love that. That's awesome. So sounds like you've got a whole a whole system there. Appreciate you sharing that. Now, so let's say despite all your postural adjustments and troubleshooting with these moms, what should a woman do if they're still experiencing leakage issues that you just can't seem to resolve?
So absolutely physio. We have some really amazing pelvic physios in the city that I live in specifically. So if they're local to me, I send them to my favorite people. If they're not local, then there's a whole network of amazing professionals that can support. And so definitely I'll send them to someone. And if it is someone who's really set on pursuing a certain activity, then we want to make sure that that's a physiotherapist who has that in mind, right? They're very forward thinking when it comes to exercise. So absolutely, I would get them to a professional that can give them some specific individualized information about what's going on internally. I've had some clients do really, really well with a Pessary, for example, and so they might see a physiotherapist who recommends they get fit for a Pessary. Pessary can really make a big difference, and that's going to solve the problem for a few women that I work with. But I would say probably most commonly, it's more of just like let's look at your entire life. So let's say you're really set on running a 10K race or a marathon, but you have like zero help at home. You're doing all the parenting, you know what I mean? You have a kid that's waking you up all the time at night. Like that might be a conversation about like, maybe you don't actually need to change your running. Maybe we need to change your life stress, your management there. Your pelvic floor can only handle so much. So if you want to put, the miles on with your pelvic floor, then maybe you need to be on your feet less during the day. Like maybe there needs to be a time where you get to nap, or that could be one example. So sometimes it's conversations like that, like where can we get you more support? And then sometimes it is conversations about like, tell me why you really, really want to do this activity. And then diving deeper, right? Like, why is that important to you? Why is that important to you? Often my clients will know I'll ask them why like 5 or 6 times in a row, right? But that's really helpful because sometimes we get to the bottom of it and it's like, well, I actually don't like running anymore. It hurts, it makes me pee. Like, I don't know what else to be. I'm a runner, or I don't know how else to burn the calories. And it's like, oh, okay, well, if this is about burning calories, then that's a different conversation altogether, right? So yeah, I think some definitely get the physio. Perhaps a pessary could be a really good support for a lot of women. And then it's really just like looking at her whole life and the whole load on her body outside of exercise.
Awesome. There's so much I want to elaborate on what you said. First of all, before I ask my follow-up question, can you chat more about a pessary, what it is? Because I don't know if everyone knows, and I want to get everyone on the same page. So what it is
Yeah.
and how it works and how it helps athletes.
Yeah. So I've heard it described before as like a sports bra for your pelvic floor. So basically just something to physically provide some more support. So we talk about the pelvic floor as if it's one thing, but it's a whole bunch of muscles, ligaments, connective tissues, right? There's a lot of things in the pelvis all working together to act as one big floor. And so sometimes it is about strengthening your muscles, but sometimes maybe some of the ligaments have been stretched, or maybe there's been some damage to some connective tissue, or maybe not damage might not even be the right word, but changes to some connective tissue, and putting in a physical structure can actually provide that kind of support like a sports bra would around your breast. So it's often just like a small object. It could be like a little ring or a little cube, and it's inserted into the vagina and basically just sits below the bladder. And again, there's a whole bunch of different ways to use a pessary, and so there's people that will specialize to figure out which one is best for you, but it's just a physical support. So if you're lacking a little bit of physical support, it might be a really good option. I have one, and that's exactly it. My physio was like, listen, your muscles are strong. You've done all of the prep work. You've done all of the foundational work. There's just a few ligaments in there that are like really, really stretched. And I doubt that they're just going to kind of ever bounce back to what they were. So why not just put in a little physical support for you? It's not a Band-Aid. It's just an extra support. And then I can continue to do certain activities that I want to do that are really good for my overall health.
Cool. Love that. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that explanation there and clarification. So I love the analogy of it being a sports bra. So you were also talking previously that I know for a lot of ladies, it's hard to accept sometimes when you're an athlete and you're a runner, you're a lifter, you're a CrossFitter, and you've the best times of your life, you have been that identity. But how do you help women realize that sometimes their old sports or activities that they did in the past aren't really working for them in the moment, or maybe even in the future? Like who knows? But how do you help women find fitness that works for them in this present moment with what they're dealing with, and finding something that they still love or something that allows them, their goal was, like you mentioned before, if it's just burning calories. How do you help women get that, find that activity with the same level of satisfaction and passion that maybe they had experienced with their old activity and that old identity that they walked around with?
Yeah. Well, I think it comes back to those whys, asking why over and over. And this might be in a conversation with me, or it might be just encouraging them to do that. I know it took me a couple years to be like, maybe I don't have to work out every day. Maybe that would be okay. And it sounds so funny now, but it just wasn't okay to me. Like in my head, I could have one day off, but it was like 6 days a week, I work out for an hour. And so I was just forcing that square peg into a round hole after my kids were born, just forcing this to happen. And when I realized that it didn't have to look that way, it was just like such a weight lifted off my chest. What if I just worked out 3 days a week? Oh my God, what would I do with all my time? And I think there's a piece about wrapping your head around life isn't always going to be like this. You're not always going to have these small humans clamoring around needing so much from you, even though it feels like so long when you're in it. My youngest just turned 5. So I already feel like, wow, I can't believe how different life is compared to then. But then I think there's also that looking forward phase, right? If you ask me what I want to be doing in 10 and 20 years, I want to be able to go for a run. I want to be able to go skiing. I want to be able to go hiking. I want to be able to, if my then teenage kids are like playing a basketball game and I want to jump in and play, I want to be able to do stuff like that. And so when I think further in the future, it also just gives me really good perspective of maybe I don't need to absolutely kill myself in a workout today if those are my goals long term, right? And those don't have to be everyone else's goals. Everyone's goals will look different, but I think that can be a helpful perspective too, of just like, why are we trying so hard right now to make this work? Is there an easier way to do this and still get to the same place?
I love that. That's beautiful. And I guess that's hard sometimes with the ego to, like you're saying, you're just the person that worked out every day for an hour and you feel guilty, you feel bad, you beat yourself up if you're not doing that. And it's nice how it's okay to reframe, it's okay to reset, it's okay to be in this different phase for a while until life changes, your situation changes. So I really like that it's not an all or nothing. And it's not something that you need to beat yourself up for, especially if your long-term goal is just to be healthy for your kids forever. So I really like that. And Kay, I really want to thank you for joining me today. And I wanted to give you the opportunity to chat about the work that you do, specifically your website, your social media handles, how people can get involved in your programs. I just want to open up the floor for you to just chat about you and your business.
Yeah, so my website is corelove.ca, and on Facebook and Instagram, I am Core Love Fitness.
Check out the Core Crew. If you are in pregnancy, we've got specific workouts for every month of pregnancy. And we also have a stream called Core Foundations. If you are returning to exercise and you want to make sure that you are building that proper foundation for your core and pelvic floor first, if you're already exercising, but you know that your inner core unit, pelvic floor, and abs could use some work, then get into the Core Foundations and we'll put you in the stream for those that are already exercising. You're going to be totally covered: abs, pelvic floor, breathing, leaking, bracing, all of it.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. And I'm going to post all of your links on our show notes. So if anyone has missed your website or your socials, they'll be able to find out that information there. And before I let you go back to your day, if you were to just run into those random stroller moms again, would you have some message for them at this point? Would you have a sign that's something that you want to school them on?
I think I would just try and shift that message of listen to your body to, can you get curious? If you're exhausted and you don't feel like working out, can you get curious about why are you feeling that way and what could you do to feel differently? If you're doing an exercise and you start peeing your pants, is there something you could do different versus I'm not going to think about it, I'm just going to push through, or this like panic of like my body's broken, it's never going to be the the same. I'm never going to be the same. Could we shift that to just get curious? Can you play with some strategies? I guess I would want women to know that you can feel good in your body again. You can find that like home in your body again. It's just probably going to be through different tools than you used before.
That is inspiring that we can get through this phase. It's just a phase is what it is. And we can get around it. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Kaye. I really appreciate that you took the time to come on to the podcast today, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Stacey. You too.
Well, that was awesome. Thanks, guys, for joining me today on the podcast. I hope you loved learning more about leakage from Kaye. She is just the most amazing and patient, knowledgeable personal trainer. And you're definitely going to want to check out her website and, of course, all her programs and social media. Thanks again for joining me today on the Strong Moms Fitness Podcast. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next time on the Strong Moms Fitness Podcast. Now remember, go subscribe so that you are the first to know as soon as new episodes drop. Also, be sure you don't miss out on your chance to win a free program of your choice from Strong Moms Fitness. All you have to do is leave a 5-star review. Screenshot it before you submit and send it to Daisy at strongmomsfitness.com. Your review helps other people find our show. And as a thank you, once a month we choose the review that makes us all warm and tingly inside and award that lucky lady a free program of their choice. So do it now. It could be you. See you next time, you badass mom, you.